today we're going to make some fresh pasta. Then we're going to make a ravioli filling, and we're going to fill some ravioli. So most of the tables out here actually have plate platters on them so that you guys can fill some along with me while we're going on. I know there's 2 tables in the back that don't, so if a couple of you guys are interested in coming up when we get to that point, you're more than welcome to come up front and make some with me. So a couple of things that you're gonna need if you want to make fresh pasta at home. The one thing that is pretty much essential is going to be some type of pasta machine. So this is a very simple, pretty inexpensive hand crank pasta machine. So the crank just goes in the side, and they're pretty simple to use, and like I said, they're fairly inexpensive. They also have KitchenAid attachments that go on the front of your KitchenAid, which are obviously powered and a little bit easier to use. For ravioli, you don't really need them, but it helps to have some type of mold or press. So this right here is a ravioli press that would make 12 raviolis at once. You just lay a sheet of pasta over top of it. Use this press to mold the dough. Another sheet of dough on top, and then use a rolling pin to roll over real quick, and you have a dozen ravioli in about a minute. For some larger ravioli, we have a single press, which is this is what's on each of the platters out front. So that's what we'll be using today. A little more time consuming, and I'll also show you how you can roll them by hand as well. So let's get started on the dough itself. So this is a pretty straightforward, simple pasta dough that you can use for just about anything. It works really, really well for rolled pastas as well as anything filled. So what I'm going to do is just have 1 pound of flour here, and what I'm going to do is just lay that out and create a nice little well. And you want to try to make sure that you have a pretty good wall all the way around that. Otherwise, you're going to run into, it's going to turn into a mess once you really get started. And I have some of our eggs here. So 4 whole eggs, and then we're going to add 1 more yolk on top of that. So what I will say is the filling that we made today is vegan. The pasta itself obviously is not. It's just having a vegan pasta they're very difficult to get to a point where you can use it for a filled pasta. They really don't have the elasticity and tend not to really hold when you fill them, especially with a moist filling inside. So I'm just going to take my eggs, beat them up just a little bit here. And then, again, try to make sure this is as deep as possible so that your eggs don't run all over the place. And then just pour the egg right in the center. And then very slowly, what we're going to do is just try to use the fork almost like a whisk and slowly start to work in the flour from the inside out. And that's what I didn't want to do. So now, that's how you end up with a mess.
That's the fun part, right?
That's it.
That's why you're wearing the white jacket instead of black.
Okay. So luckily, we caught most of that. So what I do need to add to this is a little bit of olive oil to the center of that, about a quarter of a cup. And once you start mixing it, you'll be able to tell fairly quickly if your dough is going to be dry. If that's the case, you just add a tablespoon or so of water, and it really doesn't take a whole lot to moisten it up. Okay, so now I've got to the point where it's really not going to run anywhere, so now I'm going to start getting my hands dirty. Okay. What you can do is really just almost start to knead it just like you would a fresh bread if you're making a bread dough, and it'll all start to come together. So this part does take a little bit of time. It'll generally take about 8 to 10 minutes to really get everything fully incorporated so that it doesn't start to crumble on you when you work it. What you're doing here is you want to spend a lot of time on this part. It'll make your rolling of the pasta a lot easier. What this is doing is it's really starting to develop the gluten and gives you the elasticity in the dough so that it will hold together once you stretch it out. So the more you work it, it's actually better. So you can see this is still like a little bit crumbly, and if I were to try to pull this right now, it would just tear apart. What you really want to see is once you'll get it to a point where it'll just start to pull and stretch for you. So now, as you can see, it's kind of got all the flour absorbed up into it. It will form a ball, but it's still going to pull apart on me. So what I have here is another ball that I made this morning, just for time's sake, because so this, and whenever you make fresh pasta, you always want to let it sit for at least an hour or two to let the dough relax. And what you can see is now this will actually stretch for me. So that's what you want it to look like. I'm not sure if you can tell on there, but it's actually like very smooth. It doesn't crack at all. And so we're going to just let this sit here and rest a little while longer. And we're going to start to make our filling now. So, again, the filling here is going to be vegan. So instead of using ricotta, what I'm going to do is actually puree some white beans so they'll be nice and smooth for us. So I've got our white beans right in our blender. I'm going to add just a tiny bit of vegetable stock to this just to help it move around a little bit while we're trying to puree it. Okay, so you want to let your blender run to try to get that as smooth as possible, because beans can tend to be a little bit grainy if you don't get it smooth enough. All right, so we've got, as you can see, it's just nice smooth puree. Is that showing up there? Can't really see. So yeah, like just a nice smooth puree on the bottom of the bowl. To that, what I've got a little bit of, I've got our hot pan over here. I'm going to add a touch of garlic to this. Start to saute that out. And a little bit of chopped kale. Okay. I'm actually going to add a touch of wine to this. That pan was a little hot, so that's just going to help steam off the kale a little bit quicker. Okay. smells good already. While that's going down, I'm actually going to get my pasta roller set up. Okay, so the way these work is they'll have like a hole on the side and always come with a little C-clamp. And they'll just clamp to the edge of your counter. So, and that'll hold it down so it's not moving all over the place on you. Okay, so now if you can see, our kale is sauteed off. It's wilted. You still want it to have a little bit of texture because it is going to get cooked again. So don't worry if it's still a little bit firm. So I'm going to take the bean. Now, in order to get it smooth, we had to add a little bit of the stock in there. So what I'm going to add now is a little bit of nutritional yeast. That'll give us a little bit of nuttiness, a little bit of almost that Parmesan cheese flavor, as well as it's actually going to help tighten the bean puree back up so that we don't have to worry about it running when we're filling the ravioli. So then I'm going to take our kale, add that in, and just stir that all together. And then you want to set this aside until it's completely cool. If you try filling your ravioli while any filling that you have is hot, it's just your dough is going to get really soft and mushy, and they're going to start to break on you when you cook them. So, rolling our pasta dough. Now this is something that you definitely want to take your time with. It's definitely a little bit of a process to get this going. If you can see this knob right here, has numbers on it. It goes all the way from 0 to 10, 0 being the thickest, 10 being the thinnest. We're only going to take it down to, I think, probably about 7 for ravioli. You still want your pasta to have a decent amount of thickness so that it's not doesn't tear apart on you while you're trying to fill it. I'm just going to take a little bit of flour and get it in the wheels there, and a little bit of flour on the top and bottom of our dough. What I'm going to do is just start to flatten this a little bit with my hands just to help get it started. Yeah, a little bit more. Okay. So again, it's just has a little handle that goes in the side. And then you just feed it straight from the top. And your counter at home won't be moving. So it should work out a little bit easier for you. Okay. So it did break off one small piece, which actually is not that big of a deal. So what I'll do is roll this piece out by itself, and then just bind these two together, squeeze them a little bit. So this first step is really where you want to spend time trying to get the dough shaped right. If you can see, like this tore a little bit, which is fine. It'll all work itself back together. What I'm going to do is just keep it on the same number, run it through a couple more times, and you can see that kind of is starting to come back together. I'm just going to fold it, press it, and run it back through one more time. Okay, so now you can see we're starting to get like one nice elongated piece. It's going to stay about the thickness of your pasta roller itself. You definitely want to get it to a point where it's pretty consistent width all the way down. That'll make it a lot easier when you actually go to making your ravioli. And if you were cutting the dough, it would, if it weren't the width all the way down, what you're going to run into is you're going to have some very short pieces of pasta dough, or when they start to go. So now that I've got a nice piece that's all shaped well, I'm going to start to move this down. So again, the importance here is just trying to feed it so that it stays straight when it goes through. If it starts to go crooked, it'll come out the other end, and your dough will start to look like it's turning a corner. So it's generally good if every time you go up a number, run it through it twice. And as you can see, like the dough is starting to get a very nice smooth texture to it. The more we go through, the more it's working the way. So go up another number. Sorry. And it's always good to give a little bit of tension to your dough as it's going in, not too much. You don't want to rip it, but that'll help feed it straight through as it's going. So. Okay. Let me go down one more. So as you can see, just it's getting fairly long on me. But I'll go through one more time so we can get to a better thickness for the ravioli. Okay, so there's our pasta dough. So now from here, you really can go, you can leave it in sheets for the ravioli. We can cut it into any type of long pasta you want. You can actually take a dowel or the back end of a wooden spoon and wrap it around it, and it'll almost be like a rigatoni or a penne. Give me 1 second, let me grab my cutters and I'll cut some into Okay. So this is the attachment that would come with any pasta maker. This one just has 2 cutters on it. It'll have like a fettuccine and a spaghetti. So that just attaches right onto the back of it. Your handle goes in there. And then with this, what you want to do is cut your pasta down to the length you want your noodle to be. And then pretty much the same concept as when you're going through. This time you just want to make sure you're catching it on the way out, otherwise it'll start to turn into a mess. So then it goes through there, and we have our fettuccine. So now, if you have a lot of dough left over, this will actually freeze fairly well for you. As long as you get it in the freezer pretty quick, it will freeze fairly well. Or you can, if you have something to hang it over, you can hang it. Just make sure that there's not too many noodles touching each other, and dry it out. It'll be just like any bulk dried pasta you have. It'll just only take an hour or two really to dry out for you. So let me move this thing, and now we'll make some ravioli. So somebody going to join in from every table, I hope. Okay. So if you guys look on the platter on the table, I'm pretty sure there's some gloves there to keep from getting too messy. If anybody wants to come up and help me, anybody from the back, you want to come up, Linda? Okay.
I'm like, don't throw the fettuccine
There you go.
away. I'll take it home and have it for dinner.
Okay. So what we're going to do here, you want to make sure that separate the two sheets. There should be two sheets on each platter. You can just set the one aside. There we go. Let everybody get caught up. No one? Somebody's got to join in. There we go. All right. So now, again, we're going to use the presses today, but if I were going to use one of these ravioli fill, what I would do is just set this right on top. Then this piece actually presses down and gives you an indentation in the pasta dough to fill each one. So, but since everybody has the presses, that's what we'll use. So try to brush off the flour in between the two sheets. And then, this is still warm, so it's not going to work that well. So what we're going to do, just give yourself a small spoonful. That's a little bit much. You want to try to not overfill them too much.
Well, she doesn't have a spoon.
There should be a spoon in each one.
Is there a spoon?
Oh.
Okay.
Oh, they're all on one table.
Here, she has a spoon. And that's easy.
Okay. So if you
How
just,
many do? 4?
yeah, we'll just do 4. So if you just give yourself 3 or 4 down the line, yeah, you want to leave a good inch or so in between.
She's doing it on the side. She needs to do it down the middle.
Yeah, just do one row down the
One
middle.
One down the middle.
So then after.
Oh yeah, then that's your little glue.
Yeah, after you have that, you want to take a little bit of the egg wash that's on the table and rub it all the way around the edges and in between each dollop of your filling. Okay. Here you go.
And then, do I need 2?
Yeah.
It's like heavy duty kind.
Okay. How's everybody making out? Uh-oh. Okay. Well, you're fine. It'll work out. So what you want to do is just make sure you rub a little bit of egg in between. Yes, exactly. Okay.
And one more blob.
That's a
Or
measurement of
spoonful.
blob.
Sorry.
So then take your other sheet of pasta and flip that way, right on top. I got a mess going up here,
Press
don't
down
we?
the sides.
Yep. So press down the sides on the outside, and then what you can do is if you take your hand and almost cup it, and then you can go right around your filling. And then kind of try to seal that all the way around. You're good. So yeah, if you just take the, so that you have your egg wash on there, take the other sheet of pasta, flip it right on top.
Is that good?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. Good, he's got it. And then you should
There you go. That looks good over there.
cup around the side.
Okay. So now we've got everything filled out. You just take your little ravioli press, and you want to go straight over the center of your filling. And just press firmly straight down. Then you might have to wiggle it. Let me see. Yeah, you might have to wiggle it a little bit to get it to cut through the pasta. And there you go.
Got it?
Yep.
Sort of. There we go.
There you go. So then, right there you have your ravioli afterwards. So what this press does is, if you see how it has the crinkle marks in the bottom of the presses, what that does is while it's cutting it, it actually seals it so that you don't have to worry about them ripping open while
they're cooking.
While they're cooking.
I'm having a little trouble here. You do that one.
Yeah, that's why I don't use these presses aren't the best way.
Got it.
So.
Got it. Are you actually going to cook those? No.
Yeah.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, we'll cook them.
Oh, okay.
I guess it was a success.
There's one.
Get it? Perfect.
Sort of.
I went heavy on the filling. That's my fault. Yep, you got that.
Got it?
Yeah. That's the thing that's difficult about this type of press. It's
Oh,
hard to gauge the amount of filling. So, does everybody have their ravioli? Are we good?
Am I done?
Yeah,
Done?
you're good.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Linda. No, that's my mess. Don't worry about it.
The pressure. Under pressure. Throw these down.
Yeah, you can throw them in anything. Okay. No, they're not edible at this point. So we will have some samples of it all coming out. What we're going to do first, real quick, is just make a really quick pan sauce. What I'm going to do to start that is just get my pan nice and hot again. Start with a good amount of olive oil, a little bit of chopped garlic, and when you make a really nice ravioli and you're doing stuff like by hand, I really prefer not to hide that too much. So what I'm going to do is just show you pretty much a simple garlic and oil with any type of fresh vegetable you have. Any vegetables or herbs that you're getting out of your garden would be perfect. So we got our garlic in there starting to brown. I'm going to hit it with a little bit of sliced onion. Let that start to just melt out a little bit. You just want to let them cook out until they're just about translucent. Oh, we have the pasta coming out already. Okay. A little bit of fresh tomato. And then just to go along with the filling, I'm going to add a tiny bit of the chopped kale back to that as well. It'll give it a little bit of color. A little bit more of our wine. And then I'm just going to finish that with a little bit of vegetable stock so that we have a little bit of broth in there. Let that simmer for a minute. Then what I'm going to do is actually take this off, set it aside, start my other pan with the water for the ravioli. Right. How'd they come out? Yeah, so if you're making them at home, if you really want to try making them, what I'll say, these are a lot easier to use. Where it gives you the indent in the pasta dough itself, it really helps you gauge how much filling you really do need. I mean, these things are about $10. They might be difficult to find. I'm sure you can get on Amazon fairly easily. So Won't be here tomorrow or by the time you get home from work today. So again, just bring our pasta up to, our water up to a boil. A little bit of salt in there. You always want to season your water. It'll get, the salt will definitely get soaked up into your pasta dough. Take them. I'm just going to drop these right in. With fresh pasta, you do want to be very careful when you drop the pasta in. They will tend to stick together if you don't make sure that they're separated when they go in. So, and fresh pasta will always cook about 10 times faster than any dried pasta. So if you have like a dried penne and you go to, or a dried fettuccine, which might take like 5 minutes in a pot of boiling water, your fresh pasta is really going to take about 20 to 30 seconds. It really will cook a lot quicker because you don't have to soak that any of the liquid back up into the pasta. It's all still there. What I always like to do is just cook them about halfway in the water, remove them, and then finish them in the sauce. What that'll do is a lot of that starch will still come out of the pasta. It'll help thicken whatever your sauce is without adding like butter and cream and things along those lines. So again, that's really all we need in the water. Then I'm gonna just pull these out and drain them right back into our sauce. And then just let that cook for another minute or two, and then that'll be it. Once that pasta starts to cook in the water, it'll help thicken it up quite a bit. How was the pasta? Did everybody get to try it yet, or are we still coming around? They're still coming around. They'll get to. It's not going to hurt you. You can eat it. It's just a little bit of raw egg, so. Okay. So again, that's really all the time we need in the pan. And there you have it. So we have our nice fresh ravioli, and a really nice light broth to go with it. Yeah, again, when you're making everything fresh and you have really fresh ingredients in your filling, you really don't need to do too much with a sauce. Just keep really nice, clean flavors, nice and simple, and it'll be very good. So, all right. Thank you. Any questions? Yes. So when we mass produce this for a larger party, for us here, it's generally the same exact process. That's actually the pasta roller that I use here. So you actually can get a lot of pasta dough out of a roller like that very quickly. Pasta dough, it's not something you really want to use a mixer on. You can make it with a stand mixer. What it's going to do is, unless you're very careful, it's going to get overworked very quickly. So in that case, once you go to start to roll out your pasta dough, it's going to be almost like you're stretching pizza dough, and it's going to want to spring back on you a lot. It's going to be a lot harder to work with in the end run, and what you're going to end up with is like a really chewy pasta rather than something that's nice and smooth. So, yes. You can make it with different kinds of flour. What I'll say is you're going to want to try to find a recipe for that type of flour. A lot of whole grain flours, which is what I assume you're looking for, you're not going to have the gluten that builds up in it. So a lot of times, even if you are using like a spelt flour or something like that, you're still going to want to add a little bit of maybe high gluten or bread flour, just to give you the consistency of the pasta to work with it. What it is if you saw, like when we first started rolling the dough out, how it was like tearing, and the more I worked it, it got stretchy. You're really not going to get to a point where it becomes that stretchy and has that much elasticity to it. So it will be difficult, a little bit more difficult to roll out, but you absolutely could. So. Not if you're just using bread flour. That you're not going to want. But if you're using more of like a whole grain flour and adding a little bit of flour to that just to give you the texture, yes, because it will have a higher level of gluten in that amount of flour. So, saw someone else.
Do you do anything with like the leftover stuff that's left from the ravioli?
You can. You can't really push it back together and re-roll it because at that point it is getting too sticky. It'll start drying out on you. It's not going to go back together very well. But at the end of the day, it might not be pretty. It's still pasta. So you can take that, cut it into as best a noodle as you can, and freeze it. And next time you have pasta, instead of using a dried pasta, you already have noodles. They're just not going to be as pretty. They're still going to taste exactly the same. So.
So like when you freeze it, you need to like pre-frost it, or like just leave it out on the counter.
Yeah, I would just leave it out on the counter. What I'll say is when you freeze it, you want to make sure that it's spread like as thinly as possible. You really don't want, you don't want it stacked on top of each other because then when it freezes out, all that moisture will come out of it, and it'll kind of all stick together and clump up on you. So when you go to freeze it, just make sure it's dusted, dust it in a good amount of flour, and make sure that it's all separated. And then once it's frozen, I would say if you freeze it on like a cookie tray, flat, you can pull that out and then put it in a baggie or Tupperware after that together. But once it's frozen, it's not going to stick together after that. So, yes. Yeah, if I was at home, I would just be doing it on my countertop. Like if you have a solid surface countertop, that's probably the best you're gonna get. It's gonna stick less to that than on a wood board. It'll be easier to clean up. It'll really just wipe off of that. So any type of hard solid surface is what you need. Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, that was really just because it wasn't worked enough. So if you still have like a lot of flour that's left over, or it still went into a ball. If it's not creating a ball whatsoever, then that's when you're going to want to add a little bit of water to it. And again, that can vary from the brand of flour you have, how old the flour you have is. So different flours. I mean, even an all-purpose flour that might be like Whole Foods brand and a King Arthur all-purpose flour might soak up different amount of liquids.